You ever heard of Exit 39? It's a road you don't come back from. A cursed stretch of highway snaking through the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the trees whisper secrets and the shadows grab at you like hands. People who take that exit don't just get lost. They get taken, pulled into a loop that's been hungry for decades, feeding on fear, on screams, on the kind of mistakes you can't undo. 3 college kids, Jake, Ethan, and Mia, thought they were just going on a fun road trip, a quick getaway to a cabin for some laughs and a campfire. They didn't know Exit 39 was waiting, that it had been waiting for years, or that the things hiding in those woods don't let go once they've got you. By the time they realized their mistake, the road had already claimed them and it wasn't giving them back. Not now, not ever. It all kicked off on a chilly Friday afternoon, the sun dipping low over the mountains, turning the sky a creepy orange as the 3 friends piled into Jake's beat-up SUV. Jake was behind the wheel, his baseball cap tilted back, a big grin on his face as he turned the key, the old Chevy coughing like it was sick. "This is gonna be the best trip ever," he said, his voice loud over the engine's grumble. Ethan, his best buddy since freshman year, sat in the front, messing with the camera for their travel vlog, the lens catching the last bit of daylight as he zoomed in on Jake's goofy smile. In the back, Mia scrolled her phone, her dark ponytail bouncing as she laughed at Ethan's dumb joke about bears stealing their snacks. They were headed to a cabin deep in the mountains, a last-minute plan to ditch the stress of finals, drink cheap beer and make memories they'd laugh about later. A storm was coming, the news said, with big winds and heavy rain, but Jake just waved it off. "We'll beat it," he told them, pulling onto the interstate, the road stretching out like a long gray snake through the trees. They had no idea they'd never make it to that cabin. The first hour was all fun. Ethan filming Jake's terrible singing, Mia tossing gummy bears at them, the radio blasting pop songs as the mountains got closer, their shadows swallowing the road. Jake belted out a line from an old song, his voice cracking, making Ethan double over laughing, the camera shaking in his hands. "You're killing me, man," Ethan said, wiping his eyes, while Mia giggled, her phone lighting up her face as she snapped a selfie of the 3 of them, the highway blurring behind them. But as the sky turned dark, the fun started to fade. Mia's phone lost its signal. 1 bar, then nothing. "Guys, I've got no bars," she said, holding her phone up like it'd magically work. Jake shrugged, his eyes on the road. "We're in the middle of nowhere. GPS is still good, right?" Ethan checked the screen on the dash and froze. Spinning. Just a blank map. The highway was empty, not a single car around, just miles of pavement and trees that seemed to lean in, their branches like skinny fingers reaching down. A green sign popped up ahead. "Exit 38. Last services for 50 miles. "That's our turn," Mia said, but Jake's hands slipped, the SUV jerking as he missed the ramp. "Oops," he muttered, slowing down. "We'll take the next one." 10 minutes later, another sign appeared, old and faded, the paint peeling like it was rotting. "Exit 39, no services." Mia squinted at it, her tummy feeling funny. "Did that sign just change?" she asked, her voice quiet. Jake laughed, but it sounded fake. "What, like it moved?" "You're imagining stuff." Ethan turned the camera, zooming in on the sign as they drove past. It didn't change, but the air felt heavier, the shadows darker. "I swear it said something else," Mia whispered, her eyes flicking to the mirrors. The road after Exit 39 was like a black tunnel through the mountains. No lights, no signs of life, just the hum of the SUV and a weird static crackling on the radio. They didn't turn back. They should have. The gas light blinked on 20 minutes later, a little orange dot that made Jake swear under his breath. "We're almost out of gas," he said, looking around for any sign of a station. The highway was like a black hole, the trees closing in, their trunks twisted like they were in pain. Ethan kept filming, his voice shaky as he said, "Day 1 of the road trip and we're already lost." "Awesome." Mia wasn't smiling anymore. "We need gas, Jake. This isn't a joke." Just as the needle hit empty, a faint glow showed up ahead. A gas station, its neon sign flickering like it was about to die. "Last chance fuel." Looked super old, the pumps rusty, the windows dirty, a single bulb swinging over the door. "That's not on the map," Ethan said, checking his phone. "No signal still." Jake pulled in, gravel crunching under the tires, the air smelling like oil and something gross like dead leaves. An old man came out, his overalls dirty, his face all wrinkly under a straw hat. His eyes were too big, too shiny, like he never blinked. "Fill it up," he asked, his voice scratchy, already grabbing the nozzle before Jake could say yes. Mia stayed in the car, her hands tight in her lap, watching the man's slow moves. Ethan jumped out, camera on, zooming in on the station's peeling paint, the faded sign that said open since 1952. Inside, the store was like a museum. Dusty shelves, an old phone, a light that buzzed like a trapped bug. Mia followed Ethan in, her sneakers squeaking on the floor, her eyes spotting a photo taped by the register. It showed 4 people, 2 guys, 2 girls, smiling by a car, but their eyes were scratched out, the paper crumpled like someone hated it. Ethan, she whispered, pulling his sleeve, but he was filming old candy bars, not listening. The old man appeared behind them, quiet as a ghost, making Mia jump. "Don't look back after the bridge," he said, his voice low, staring at her like he could see her thoughts. "What bridge?" Ethan asked, turning the camera, but the man just smiled, his teeth yellow and gross, and walked back outside. Jake paid with cash, the old man's hands shaking as he counted the money, mumbling to himself. "What did he say about a bridge?" Jake asked as they got back in, the tank full, the station's light fading in the mirrors. Mia's voice wobbled. "He said not to look back. And that photo, those people..." She couldn't finish, her heart racing as they drove off, the highway swallowing them again. A few miles later they crossed a narrow metal bridge, the kind that creaks under the weight of a car, the river below black and still. The radio, which had been quiet, suddenly burst with static, a harsh hiss that made them all jump. "Turn that off," Mia said, but Jake was already twisting the knob. It wouldn't stop. Through the static, whispers started, soft at first, like someone talking far away, then louder, words they couldn't make out but felt in their bones. Ethan glanced at the rearview mirror and froze. "Guys, there's someone behind us," he said, his voice tight. Mia whipped around, but the road was empty, just darkness and trees. "I don't see anything," she said, but Ethan's eyes were wide. "He's walking right behind us. But we're going like 50 miles an hour." Jake laughed, nervous. "You're messing with us, right?" Ethan shook his head, his hands shaking as he held the camera. "I'm not." The whispers got louder, a jumble of voices, some crying, some laughing, all wrong. Then the headlights cut out. No flicker, no warning, just gone. The SUV plunged into total darkness, the road disappearing, the trees vanishing, just the sound of the engine and those awful whispers filling the car. "Jake!" Mia screamed, grabbing his arm, but he was already slamming the brakes, the SUV skidding on the pavement. The lights snapped back on, the road empty again, the whispers fading to static, then silence. Ethan's breath came in gasps. "He's gone. The guy's gone." Mia's hands shook as she looked out the back window. Nothing but black. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Jake didn't answer, his knuckles white on the wheel, the bridge long behind them but its shadow still clinging. They didn't get far before the SUV started acting up. Sputtering, jerking, the engine coughing like it was choking. "Come on, don't do this," Jake muttered, but the car had other plans. It rolled to a stop on the side of the road, a forested stretch where the trees were so thick they blocked out the stars, the air heavy with the smell of pine and something sour like decay. "Great," Ethan said, slamming his hand on the dash. "Tao what?" Jake grabbed a flashlight from the glove box. "I'll go look for help. You two stay here." Mia grabbed his arm. "Don't, Jake. Something's wrong with this place." But he shook her off, forcing a smile. "I'll be quick. Lock the doors." He stepped out, the flashlight beam bouncing as he walked into the dark, his footsteps fading until there was nothing but silence. Mia and Ethan sat in the car, the doors locked, the windows fogging with their breath. "He'll be back," Ethan said, but his voice was shaky, the camera still in his lap, recording nothing but the dashboard. Minutes turned to an hour, then 2, and Jake didn't come back. Mia kept checking her phone. No signal, but the battery was draining fast, the screen flickering. "We can't just sit here," she said, her voice trembling. Ethan nodded, but before they could move, something shifted outside. A shadow, tall and thin, moving between the trees. Then another and another figure stepping out of the woods, their shapes wrong, too long, too still. They didn't walk. They glided, circling the SUV, their faces hidden in the dark, their movements silent but heavy, like they carried a weight the air couldn't hold. Mia's breath hitched, her hand grabbing Ethan's. "Do you see them?" she whispered. He nodded, his eyes wide, the camera shaking as he lifted it, zooming in on the figures. They didn't have faces, just blank spaces where eyes should be, their heads tilting like they were listening. "We need to go," Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper, but the doors were locked, the keys still in the ignition where Jake left them. Mia's phone buzzed, making them both jump. A new photo appeared in her gallery, one she didn't take. It showed her and Ethan in the car, asleep, their heads slumped against the seats, and a figure standing over them, its face a blur of shadow, its hand reaching for her. "Ethan," she gasped, showing him the screen. His face went pale. That's now. How?" The figures outside moved closer, their shapes pressing against the windows, the glass fogging where they touched, leaving smudges that looked like handprints but weren't. Too long, too many fingers. The car rocked, a slow, deliberate push like they were testing it. Mia screamed, dropping her phone, the screen cracking as it hit the floor. Ethan grabbed the keys, fumbling to start the car, but the engine wouldn't turn over. Just a click, then nothing. The figures tapped on the glass, a soft, rhythmic sound, like nails on a coffin, their blank faces tilting closer. "We have to run," Mia said, her voice breaking, and Ethan nodded, his hands shaking as he unlocked the door. They bolted into the woods, the figures turning to follow, their movements slow but relentless, the dark swallowing them as they ran. The woods were a maze of shadows, the trees so close they scraped Mia's arms, the ground uneven with roots and rocks. Ethan held her hand, pulling her along, his breath ragged, the camera swinging from his neck. "Keep going," he panted, but the figures were behind them, their steps silent but their presence heavy, a cold that seeped into their bones. They ran until their lungs burned, until the trees opened to a clearing, and there it was. A cabin, old and run down, its windows boarded, its roof sagging like it was tired of standing. "In there," Mia said, her voice desperate, and they stumbled inside, slamming the door, their hands shaking as they pushed a rusty chair against it. The cabin smelled like mold and dust, the air thick with something heavier like fear soaked into the walls. A single lantern sat on a table, its flame flickering like it had been waiting for them. The walls were covered in scratches, deep, jagged marks that spelled out one word over and over: exit. "What is this place?" Ethan whispered, his voice shaking as he panned the camera. Mia's eyes caught a pile of stuff in the corner. Old cameras, notebooks, Polaroids scattered on the floor. She picked one up, her hands trembling. It showed a group of people smiling, their car parked at a gas station, the same one they'd stopped at. Another photo showed them in this cabin, their faces pale, their eyes wide with fear. And another, taken from outside through the window, their bodies slumped, blood pooling on the floor. Ethan found a stack of travel vlogs on V's tapes, the labels faded but readable. Road Trip 92, Spring Break 98, Mountain Getaway 05. "These are all people like us," he said, his voice breaking. Mia's eyes darted to the wall, the word exit carved so deep it looked like it bled. "Every group that took exit 39. They ended up here," she whispered, the truth sinking in like a stone. "And no one ever left." The lantern flickered, the shadows on the walls moving like they were alive, stretching toward them. Something scratched at the door, slow, deliberate, like it knew they were trapped. Ethan grabbed a rusty knife from the table, his hands shaking, but Mia's eyes were on the window, where a figure stood, its blank face pressed to the glass, watching. They stayed in the cabin all night, the scratching never stopping, the figures circling outside, their shapes growing taller, thinner, like they were stretching into something worse. At dawn, the scratching stopped, the figures gone, the woods silent. "We have to get back to the road," Mia said, her voice raw, her eyes red from crying. Ethan nodded, the knife still in his hand, the camera battery long dead. They stepped outside, the air cold and still, the woods empty but heavy, like something was waiting. They found the highway after an hour, their legs aching, their hearts pounding, the SUV still there, its doors open, the figures gone. Mia ran to the road, waving her arms as a truck appeared, its headlights cutting through the morning mist. The driver stopped, a middle-aged man with a tired face, his rig idling like a beast. "You okay, kid?" he asked, his voice gruff but kind. Mia climbed into the cab, her words spilling out. The gas station, the bridge, the figures, the cabin, all of it. The driver listened, his face calm, his hands steady on the wheel. "You're not the first to try," he said, his voice low, his eyes on the road. "Been driving this loop for 30 years. Mia's heart stopped, her breath catching as she turned to the side mirror. There she was, herself, sitting in the back seat, smiling, her eyes too wide, too empty, her face pale as death. The driver didn't look back, didn't flinch, just kept driving, the highway stretching on, the sign for exit 39 coming up again and again and again. But that wasn't the end, not for Mia, not for the road. The trucker dropped her off at a diner 50 miles down the highway, a little place called Mountain Rest, its neon sign buzzing in the early morning light. Mia stumbled inside, her clothes torn, her hands shaking, the smell of coffee and grease a sharp contrast to the wood's decay. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Darlene, took one look at her and poured a cup of coffee without asking. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Darlene said, her voice soft, her hands steady as she slid the mug across the counter. Mia tried to speak, but the words stuck in her throat, the image of herself in the mirror burning behind her eyes. I took exit 39, she finally whispered, her voice breaking. Darlene's face changed, her eyes darkening, her hand pausing on the counter. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, her voice low, like she was afraid someone might hear. Darlene sat down across from her, her apron stained with ketchup, her face pale in the diner's dim light. "Folks round here don't talk about exit 39, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not unless they've seen it. My brother took that exit in '89. Him and his girlfriend on their way to a music festival. Never came back. Cops found their car a month later, doors open, seats wet like it'd rained inside. No sign of them." Mia's hands shook, the coffee sloshing in the mug. "Wet, like rain?" she asked, her voice trembling. Darlene nodded slow. "Always is. Smells like it too, rain and something else, something dead." Mia's mind flashed to the SUV, the damp seats, the sour smell that clung to her clothes. "What is it?" she asked, her voice desperate. Darlene leaned in, her eyes sharp. "It's the road. It's been taking people since the highway was built. Back in the 50s. They say it's cursed, that something lives out there, something that doesn't let go." Mia stayed at the diner for hours, the coffee cold in her hands, Darlene's words a weight she couldn't shake. She called her parents from the diner's landline, her voice cracking as she told them she was okay, that she'd be home soon. But she didn't feel okay. Her reflection in the diner's window looked wrong, her eyes too wide, her smile too stiff, like the girl in the trucker's mirror. She hitched a ride back to campus with a trucker named Carl, a quiet man with a beard and a rig full of lumber, his radio playing soft country tunes as they drove. "You sure you're all right?" Carl asked, glancing at her, his voice kind but worried. Mia nodded, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking, her eyes darting to the mirrors every few minutes, expecting to see herself staring back. Back at school, Mia tried to move on. Classes, friends, late-night study sessions, but exit 39 wouldn't let go. She'd wake up screaming, the sound of scratching in her ears, the feel of those blank faces watching her. Ethan's camera was gone, left in the cabin, but her phone still had that photo. Them asleep, the figure standing over them, its hand reaching out. She deleted it, but it kept coming back, showing up in her gallery every few days, the figure's face clearer each time, its eyes blank, its mouth stretched in a smile that wasn't human. She stopped sleeping, her grades slipping, her friends pulling away as she rambled about the road, the cabin, the things that took Jake. Ethan's parents came looking for him a week later, their faces pale as they knocked on Mia's dorm door, asking questions she couldn't answer. "He said he was going to a cabin with you," his mom said, her voice breaking, her hands clutching a photo of Ethan, smiling, happy, alive. Mia told them what she could, the gas station, the bridge, the woods. But she left out the figures, the cabin, the way Ethan had screamed when the door started to buckle, the way she'd run and left him behind. They left with nothing, their eyes hollow, and Mia locked her door, her hands shaking as she stared at the photo on her phone, the figure's face now sharp, its blank eyes staring right at her. She started researching, late at night when the dorm was quiet, her laptop screen the only light in the room. She found stories, dozens of them stretching back decades, all tied to exit 39. A family in 62 vanished on their way to a ski trip, their car found empty, seats damp. A couple in 75, last seen at a gas station that didn't exist, their Polaroids found in a pawn shop years later, their eyes scratched out. A group of hikers in 93, their tent found torn apart, their journal full of sketches of blank-faced figures. The stories piled up, a mountain of whispers, all pointing to the same truth. Exit 39 was a trap, a loop that didn't let go, a predator that fed on the lost. Mia tracked down Darlene a month later, driving back to Mountain Rest in her mom's old sedan, her hands shaking on the wheel as she passed the sign for exit 38, her eyes fixed ahead. refusing to look for 39. Darlene was still there, her apron cleaner this time, her face softer but still tired. "You're back," she said, pouring Mia a coffee, her hands steady. "Couldn't stay away, could you?" Mia nodded, her voice small. "I need to know more. I need to stop it." Darlene sighed, sitting down across from her, her eyes distant. "You can't stop it. It's older than us, older than the highway. My granddad used to tell stories. Back when they built the road, they found things in the mountains, things they shouldn't have touched. Bones, carvings, stuff that didn't belong. They built over it, but it didn't go away. It just got hungrier." Darlene pulled out a box from under the counter, old and dusty, the lid creaking as she opened it. Inside were photos, letters, newspaper clippings, all about Exit 39. A grainy photo from 55 showed workers on the highway, their faces pale, their eyes wide as they stood by a pile of bones, the ground around them carved with symbols that made Mia's skin crawl. A letter from 67 written by a trucker described a gas station that appeared out of nowhere, an old man who warned him about a bridge, a figure that followed him until he crashed. A clipping from 82 reported a missing family, their car found at Exit 39, seats wet, a Polaroid inside showing them asleep, a shadow standing over them. "It's all the same," Mia whispered, her hands shaking as she sifted through the box. "It's always the same." Darlene nodded, her voice low. "It takes what it wants. Doesn't matter who you are, kids, families, truckers. It's been doing this since the road was built, maybe longer. My brother, he was the last one I knew who took that exit. I've been collecting this stuff ever since, hoping I'd find a way to stop it. But I haven't." Mia's eyes burned, her hands clenching the edge of the table. "There has to be a way. I can't live like this, seeing that thing in my pictures, hearing the scratching every night." Darlene reached across, her hand warm on Mia's. "You're still here. That means something. Most don't make it out." Mia spent the next week at the diner, sleeping in a booth when Darlene closed up, poring over the box, looking for a crack, a clue, anything to break the loop. She found a map, hand-drawn by a trucker in 79, showing Exit 39 and the woods around it, a spot marked with a red X labeled the Heart. "What's this?" she asked Darlene, pointing at the map. Darlene's face went pale. "My granddad mentioned a place like that, said it was where they found the bones, the carvings. Said it felt alive, like it was breathing. They built the highway right over it." Mia's heart raced, her hands trembling as she traced the map. If that's where it started, maybe that's where it ends. She drove out the next night, the map on the passenger seat, her mom's sedan rattling as she passed Exit 38, her eyes scanning for 39. It was there, the sign faded but glowing in her headlights, the words "No services" mocking her. She turned off, the road swallowing her, the trees closing in, their branches scraping the car like nails on a chalkboard. The gas station appeared again, its neon sign flickering, the old man standing by the pumps, his eyes glinting as he watched her drive past. She didn't stop, her hands tight on the wheel, the map guiding her to a dirt path off the highway, a trail that led deep into the woods. The path ended at a clearing, the air thick with the smell of rot, the ground soft under her sneakers like it was alive. In the center was a pit, the dirt around it carved with symbols that matched the ones in the photo, the air humming with a sound she felt in her chest like a heartbeat. She stepped closer, her flashlight shaking, the beam catching bones scattered in the dirt, human, animal, some too strange to name. The humming got louder, the air colder, and then she saw them. The figures stepping out of the trees, their blank faces watching, their shapes stretching as they moved closer. Mia's breath caught, her heart pounding, but she didn't run. "I'm not leaving," she whispered, her voice steady, her hands clenching the flashlight like a weapon. The figures stopped, their heads tilting, the humming growing louder, the ground shaking under her feet. She dropped to her knees, digging in the dirt, her hands scraping against something hard. A stone carved with the same symbols, its surface warm, pulsing like a heart. She pulled it free, the ground trembling, the figures screaming. A sound that wasn't human, a sound that tore at her ears. She smashed the stone with her flashlight again and again until it cracked, the humming stopping, the figures collapsing into the dirt, their shapes dissolving like smoke. The air went still, the woods silent, the pit empty now, just dirt and bones and a cold that lingered. Mia drove back to the highway, her hands shaking, the sedan rattling as she passed the gas station. It was gone, the lot empty, the neon sign dark. Exit 39 was still there, But the sign was blank, the paint peeled away, the road beyond it quiet, empty. She made it back to Mountain Rest, her clothes covered in dirt, her hands raw, her eyes wild as she stumbled into the diner. Darlene was there, her face pale as she saw Mia, her hands trembling as she poured a coffee. "You did it," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I felt it. Something changed." Mia nodded, her voice raw. "It's over. I think it's over." But it wasn't, not really. Mia went back to school, tried to move on, but the road left its mark. She'd see the figures in her dreams, their blank faces watching, the scratching echoing in her ears. Her phone stopped showing the photo, but she'd find scratches on her dorm door, the word exit carved in the wood, faint but there. Darlene kept the diner open, the box of stories under the counter, but she stopped hearing whispers about exit 39. No new vanishings, no new cars found with wet seats. The trucker still drove, his rig a ghost on the highway, but he didn't pick up strays anymore, his mirrors empty, his route quiet. Years later, a new group of kids took exit 39, 4 friends on a spring break trip, their laughter loud as they missed their turn, the sign glowing in their headlights. They found the gas station, the old man gone but the photo still there, the eyes scratched out. They crossed the bridge, the whispers starting, the figure following, the headlights cutting out. They broke down, ran to the cabin, found the Polaroids, the scratches, the word exit on the walls. But the figures didn't come, the pit stayed quiet, the stone broken. They made it out, shaken but alive, the road letting them go, for now. Exit 39 was still there, still waiting, its hunger dulled but not gone, its shadows whispering for the next ones to miss their turn.